What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 3 and Out YouTube page. I'm John Middlekauff, and we are talking football all day, every day. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends. Let's roll, baby. What is going on, everybody? Hopefully everyone's having a good end to the week, heading into Memorial Day weekend. So what I thought I would do today is do a little NFL rapid fire. I went through, picked a couple things that I read today, that I saw today that are going on around the football world, and thought we would just hit them kind of rapid fire before we go into Memorial Day weekend. Hopefully everyone is chilling, relaxing, and hanging out, because that's what you do on Memorial Day weekend. But, a lot going on. Something on the 49ers, a couple things that jumped out. Right now at OTAs, until the mandatory camp, which is usually the last practices before you go off to summer vacation, the media is only allowed in 1 day a week, though they practice 3 days a week. So you only really get, the players talking and the media reacting to practice on the 1 day, even though they're practicing throughout the day. And something I saw with the Browns was kind of interesting. And then we'll just kind of fly around the league. Before we dive into some football, obviously, if you want to go to a football game this fall, if you want to go to any game, if you want to go to a concert, if you want to go to a comedy show, my friends have you covered. Gametime, the official ticketing app of this podcast, something I've been very, very loyal as a user to now for about, going on 2 years. Going to Luke Combs here, not this Saturday, but next Saturday night, because of them, was very easy to see. I could see where I wanted to sit. It's like, do I want to sit lower? Do I want to sit in the club seats? How much do I want to pay? What's the view? I've done it for baseball games, hockey games, back when Arizona had a hockey team. Haven't been to a football game in a while. I know a lot of you have. And if you want to go, just use that Gametime app. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code JOHN, JOHN, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Let's start in Santa Clara, a place I've been many a time to watch the 49ers practice. And one thing I know pretty well when it comes to the 49ers, and know Parag a little bit, the guy that manages the money, have a pretty good sense of the way John and Kyle operate. They drive a hard bargain. They are usually not the team to just hand out the money March 15th with their own guys. When they have a high-priced player, unless you're willing to essentially give a bargain, it's going to be a knockdown dragout. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to get paid. Nick Bosa got a historic amount of money, but it went right up until the regular season started. Deebo Samuel had to do a hold-in. He had literally just carried the team to the playoffs. Took him to the NFC Championship game, and it was difficult. Trent Williams almost went to the Kansas City Chiefs. Honestly, not sure where the 49ers would be if that would have happened. All-time sliding doors moment in the NFL. Like, the Chiefs really needed Trent Williams. But that was tough. There was a sleepless night or two leading into opening a free agency that he was going to go somewhere else. And they get a number, and they stay and stand, I would say pretty confidently behind it. They don't play scared in these situations. And some teams are a little more aggressive because they go, well, the future cap, it's not even being frugal because they'll end up giving the money, but it's not easy to get it. you got to work. Your agent earns that couple percent that he's making off the deal. It's going to happen next year with Brock Purdy, even if he fucking wins the MVP. I'm telling you, I've seen them operate now for a long, long time. And this Brandon Aiyuk contract is no different. He is not at practice. Like, the Justin Jefferson thing's pretty easy. He wants a historic amount of money, probably not budging. They know they need him. He's the best player on the team. It's just, you're talking a lot of money. The Aiyuk thing is a difficult conversation. This is an offense that is never going to have a 100-catch guy. This is an offense that, while he's very good, he is a winning player at the highest level. On his best season, is going to catch 85 balls. So he's, I'm sure, asking for 28 to $30 million. And that's a tough spot for them to be, given his comps. No one producing at that level gets paid that. But he goes, I am this good of a player. Look at my yardage. Look at my PFF grades. Look at how much you value me. And this thing's going to be a knockdown dragout. I expect this thing. I would be stunned if this doesn't go into training camp. And I would expect this to go well through training camp. Now, from just a pure football standpoint, like I try to avoid this at all costs when I'm a team trying to win the Super Bowl. Like last year, Nick Bosa started really slow. Why? Because he hadn't been practicing. I don't care how high character, how hard you work, how much you love football. And I would put Bosa under that category because he came back just jacked. But it's not the same as being on the field going up against Trent Williams every day. Just like running routes next to Deebo Samuel, getting the ball thrown to you from Brock Purdy is not the same as running around with some former college quarterback throwing you the pill at some high school football field. So I understand the way the Niners operate like this, and it's been very successful to them, and the results speak for themselves. But this situation is just, they're not going to trade him because you wouldn't trade him next year for a future pick. You need him now. But I expect this thing to drag out because that's what history would show me when it comes to these situations. The other thing is McCaffrey. Now, a lot of their guys, Fred Warner on the sideline, George Kittle on the sideline, Trent Williams never shows up to this. Don't blame him. Bosa did, and usually he stays and works in Florida. But it's like, once I give you $125 million and make you the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL, I just come around, buddy. And he did. And Deebo, he's probably scared he was going to get traded, comes back, slimmed down, new number. Christian McCaffrey wasn't there. Now, if you follow him on the old Instagram, he's going to get married in the near future to Olivia, and good-looking family. Not going to lie. Both those two, really. And my first thought was, what if he wants a little more money? Now, Mike Florio reported, according to sources, this has nothing to do with the contract. But when you look at his contract, he makes under $12 million this year from the 49ers. His guaranteed money from that massive deal that he signed with the Carolina Panthers, which was ahead of its time, is gone. Now, if it's not obviously just personal, he's working out on his own, this is voluntary. If I am Christian McCaffrey, I go, listen, I know running backs have struggled to get some money in recent years. And while wages are going up around the country and definitely in the NFL, our wages have stagnated. And I was the first of my kind, around $15-ish million. I was the highest paid running back in the league on a per year basis. I actually think it's $16 million. You guys had nothing to do with that. And what I've produced since I've been here speaks for itself. I'm not only one of the best players on this team. Bosa makes 30 plus. Trent makes 20 and is underpaid. And me, like, listen, I'm not asking for 30, but I don't think it would be crazy if Christian's like, hey, can we up this number a little bit? Can we just add some guaranteed money and yearly number? Like, I'm a $20 million player easy when you factor in my importance to the team, my impact on the league, the way I play. I catch the ball and run the ball. I'm a dominant player. And I'm 26, 27 years old. Like, I'm not 32. And since I've been around you, like, durability has not been an issue. I have been one of the best trades this organization has ever made. Steve Young, probably number one. When you trade like a 4th round pick and some money for Steve Young. But in recent memory, I would say Christian McCaffrey is pretty high. So I don't think it's crazy whenever he does return to be like, hey, guys, we need to kind of get this contract right. And this is where these elite players have some juice, like Cam Hayward under contract. Like, guys, I'm the team captain, right? Zach Martin last year. Like, hey, guys, I'm making 14. I know I've signed a previous deal, but look at the landscape now. It's easy to be like, hey, for normal people, shit, you're making 120 grand. Well, yeah, that was sweet a couple years ago. Now the average person in my position's making 200. Harder for you to stomach. Or if you're making 60 grand and you've been making that for a couple years, and then you look around, every other person in your position is now making 95. Like, we're all human beings. Money's all relative. So yeah, $11.8 million is a shit ton of money, and McCaffrey has done very well for himself. But what would the 49ers pay if they had to keep him? I'll promise you this. Kyle Shanahan would pay Christian McCaffrey before Brandon Aiyuk, and they would gladly give him $20 million. Now, we can argue, giving a running back a third contract. I think he's pretty unique because of his ability as a wide receiver. Like, on any given season, if you really wanted, he'd catch 80, 90 balls. No problem. The durability thing definitely scares me. Not even because of him. I think he's definitely changed his body over the last couple of years after he had the injury issues in Carolina. It's more the coach. It's like, hey, Kyle, you're up 15 points in the fourth quarter. Let's just stop giving these inside runs to Christian McCaffrey for 3 yards and having 2 defensive linemen land on him. Like, this isn't 1987. But Kyle's like, give it to him again, Purdy. It's like, guys, can we use the backup running back to just take 6, 7 carries in the second half? But that's not really how Kyle's operated. He's ran him into the ground. And don't totally blame him because he's so good. But when you got to lead in some of these games, like, give him a breather. Last but not least on the Niners, the last couple of years they've had a shit show at quarterback, right? A couple years ago, they brought Jimmy Garoppolo as a backup. Trey Lance was the starter, even though he wasn't even the best quarterback on the team, but they had to do it because they invested everything into him. Then he got hurt, and then that situation ended the season with Purdy in. Well, then Purdy gets injured, and last year, so much talk around the Niners was like, is Purdy really, even if he comes back healthy, deserve the job? Shouldn't this be an open competition? It's like, guys, Trey's not even going to beat out Sam Darnold. The moment they signed Sam Darnold, he was the backup. But there were questions whether Purdy's health, how his return would be from the elbow, which is fair. Like, anytime, this Joe Burrow conversation, it's like, what's it going to look like? What's the first time you get injured? And now it's like, just Brock Purdy's a starting quarterback, and he's completely healthy, and he just gets to take all the reps. Like, that's the healthiest spot to be in as a team. Obviously, he's a young player. He needs to continue to improve. But you look around the league, the best teams with established quarterbacks, like, it's very quiet at that position. Like Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, right? Dak Prescott, whoever, just get the reps in practice. They're just the starting quarterback. And that's where the 49ers are for the first time in a long time. We are this close to crowning an NBA champ. And with action heating up on the court, it's even hotter at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. There are only so many games left, and DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered with same-game parlays, live betting, odds boost, and so much more. Don't miss out, or you'll have to wait until the next NBA season to place your bets. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple, like picking a team to win. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your squad, and place your first bet. It's that simple. New to DraftKings? Listen up. New customers can get a no-sweat bet up to $1,500. Just deposit at least $5, and you'll get a bonus bet back equal to your first bet if it doesn't hit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get a no-sweat bet up to $1,500 if your first bet doesn't hit. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Speaking of quarterbacks, like I said, quarterbacks, the media gets 1 day a week. So you get 3 practices, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and the team gets to choose like, oh, Tuesday's open, right? A lot of teams did Tuesdays open. Some teams do Wednesdays open. And you can manipulate it a little bit because you don't allow the team or the onlookers to see certain players. And yesterday, according to Kevin Stefanski, Deshaun Watson practiced, looked normal, coming back from this shoulder injury. And then today, when the media was there, so people are like, what's he going to look like? He's on the side. And it's just something to keep an eye on. It's easy to be like, yeah, it looked really good. That meal I made would have been like Emeril Lagasse. It's like, well, can you cook it for me? It's just, I'm telling you, people think I'm a Browns hater. I'm not. I like Kevin Stefanski. I think their team has a lot of high-end guys that I'd fucking want on my squad every day of the week. But to say that this situation, since the moment this guy got here, on and off the field, hasn't been one of the more bizarre things we've ever seen. It's just constantly weird. It really is. It went from uncomfortable to just being bad football to it's just now he's legitimately hurt. Even though they say he's completely healthy, maybe they're easing him back in. Well, I don't think they eased them back in on the day when no one could watch randomly. Just something to keep an eye on. Part of the Seattle scheme, obviously it's changed over the years. But one reason when Richard Sherman was in the peak of his powers, and he'd tell you he was the best corner, Revis in his prime, but they kind of overlapped at the end, and Sherman got the bill. Sherman didn't move, right? He stayed on the one side of the field because the way they run their zone defense concepts, you don't have a guy going back and forth like playing man-to-man defense 24/7, 365, like you could do with Dion, like you could do with Darrelle Revis. And it was just never part of the scheme. And Robert Saleh kind of alluded to the other day of like, yeah, we might try to have Sauce Gardner mirror the top guys in the league that we play. And when we're playing whoever who is a Pro Bowl, all pro level wide receiver, Sauce is going to check them all game, which sounds great in theory, but now mirroring it to the scheme, like there are certain defensive principles. The reason you don't do that is the roles and the assignments for all your guys in the secondary and your linebackers, they all have areas. So it'll be very interesting if they try to do a dramatic change. Now, part of football in general, I don't care what level, is evolving, but that's something to keep an eye on. The Stafford contract situation is kind of brewing. McVay refused to talk about it, said we're going to keep this in-house. My take on this is pretty simple. They gave him a ton of money a couple years ago. Now his yearly contract, a lot like Christian McCaffrey, looks a lot lower than these other guys. He's scheduled to make $31 million this year, I think 32 next year. His cap hits are really, really high. I think the hard part about it, and down the stretch, I looked at his numbers today, after or right before Thanksgiving, I guess Thanksgiving is like the 27th, 26th, maybe 25th, whatever dates Thanksgiving is. Whatever the game they played that weekend up until the playoff game, he threw 17 touchdowns and 1 interception. He was easily one of the best players in the league. And when Matt Stafford is on, he's as good as anybody. Like he can go toe-to-toe with Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar, whoever. He did go toe-to-toe with Lamar. They almost won that game if their special teams didn't blow. So I get it from his standpoint on the simple fact of like, I don't make enough. I think the hard part is like, bro, we just broke you off with a ton of guaranteed money and have paid you an astronomical amount. It's a difficult situation. It really is. You talk about a guy in his mid-30s. He's not as old as you think because he came into the league really young. Like for a guy that's been in the league that long, he should be like 39, but I'm pretty sure he came in the league at 20 years old. But he has a lot of mileage, a lot of wear and tear because for years he got the crap beat out of him in Detroit, obviously. And then even in LA, he's banged up a couple years ago. Tough situation. It really is. Now, Stafford's not like he's holding out or anything. He's there. But I think this is a story that's kind of brewing under the surface with the Rams. And I understand them kind of being like, yeah, just kind of play this out. Like McCaffrey goes, you didn't give me this money. This contract, you inherited it. Time for you guys to take care of me, what I'm doing for you. Where Stafford is like, yeah, we just took care of you after we won the Super Bowl. Threw the $160 million at you. Not our fault that in 2 years it looks all out of whack. Kind of crazy that within a couple years, Jared Goff got more than Matt Stafford. Would not have had that on my bingo card the moment the trade happened. Be like, listen, the Rams are going to win a Super Bowl with Stafford. He's going to be really good. McVay's going to love him. But also in like a couple years, the Lions are going to be sweet. Goff's going to resurrect his career, and the contract he gets is actually going to be more than the one Stafford gets. Never know. NFL's wild. I love it when you draft a guy really high, and I understand why these stories happen. In OTAs, in training camp, so-and-so is running with the ones. And I definitely think it's fair if it's a third-day pick, even a third-rounder, like, hey, this guy is the starting corner, or this guy's the starting defensive end, or this guy's the starting guard. Like, it's, damn, they got a guy running with the ones that they drafted, pick 140. The Chargers drafted Ladd McConkey in the top 40. He was their second-round pick, and because they were crappy, they drafted really high in the second round. So the story comes out, he's running with the ones. Well, yeah, they drafted him to run with the ones. They got rid of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. So whoever they drafted at wide receiver in the first 3 rounds, let alone with their second round pick, is going to be a starter. So it's not, I understand why people put it out there, but like, yeah, sky is blue. Ice is cold. Ladd McConkey is a starting wide receiver for the Chargers. A couple other just NFL things. The Pittsburgh will host the draft. And let's face it, this move by the league, and I loved, it's one of the only times I've ever been in New York City, went to Radio City Music Hall, the 2011 draft, which was Cam Newton, Julio, AJ Green, JJ Watt. It was badass. It was really cool environment. And it was awesome there for a long period of time. And I thought when they moved it, I'm like, should just keep it at Radio City Music Hall. I would say it's one of the smartest like on the field things they've done in a long, long time. This doesn't just work. It feels dramatically bigger with the huge crowds, just the playing to the environment, all the shows around it. It's a massive, massive hit. And I also think it's cool to be able to go to places like Pittsburgh's not getting a Super Bowl. Cleveland's not getting a Super Bowl. Detroit's not getting these cold. I guess Detroit technically could, and I think they have. But any of these outdoor freezing cold stadiums, you're just not getting them. So you get the event. And I'm not saying the draft is a Super Bowl, but it's better than nothing. And clearly in a place, we saw it in Cleveland, we saw it in Detroit, we've seen it in Kansas City. It's awesome. Now, if I was a fan to go to that and sit way behind, I don't know if it'd be the coolest event to be there. Maybe it would, but people clearly like it. People are clearly enjoying themselves. It looks way cooler on TV because let's face it, anytime you see a mass amount of people at an event, it feels bigger. And that's the one thing. The draft now, even though it's the same exact format as it's always been, 10 minutes, pick is in, Roger announces, pick is in, a trade is in. Nothing has changed except people standing there. And it's added a huge, I would just say, curveball and an infusion of energy that wasn't there. And I'm sure I said this at the time, and I'm sure I would have thought this, like, this is kind of a stupid idea. Sometimes stupid ideas are the best ones because this one has been a pretty seamless transition into just an explosion for some of these cities. And then the economic data comes out about the restaurants and the hotels. It's been a home run. And last but not least, the NFL is sniffing around the idea of playing a football game in Australia. And when I was like 12 years old, I was in 6th grade, I went with my dad to New Zealand. He was actually already there. I flew by myself at 12 years old. Times were a little different in the 90s. Pretty easy. Like that would probably never happen these days. But I flew by myself to New Zealand, and I was there for probably, I don't even know, 10 days with him. Fly fish, went to see different sites, went on a whale tour, went to where bungee jumping originated. Place is badass. I need to get back. But the flight was very, very long. It was a long trip. And logistically, when you go to, play a game in London or the UK, if you take Jacksonville or New York or Pittsburgh or New England or the Eagles, it's not that long of a flight. Like, given where you're going, you're talking 4 hours, 45 minutes to 6 hour flight. Well, if Tampa plays Seattle, what do you think that flight is? So it's very similar to some of the longer NFL flights. If you go to Australia, like, that's pretty crazy. Now, I do think it would be really cool, and it makes a lot of sense in theory to play a game in Australia. I think it would pop. Those people love sports, even though NFL football is clearly not top on the list of the sports they support. It would be a home run. It would 100% work. But I know this, all 32 teams would not want that trip because of the amount of time in the plane, the amount of time home, even if they build it around a bye week or off a Thursday night game or however it's going to work, teams would want no part of that. And I think if you're the road team playing in the UK, it's not even that big a deal. It really isn't. I think Australia is a different animal. I really do. Now, I haven't looked on the flight from Philly and Green Bay to Brazil. Never been to Brazil. Always wanted to. Looks incredible. Rio de Janeiro. But And that's, if I had to guess, probably longer than 5 hours. Could be wrong. Maybe it's shorter. But Australia is really, really far. So it'll be interesting to push back by some of the teams. But what we've learned over the years, the players, the coaches, the GMs, the league office does not care at all what you think. And ultimately, the owners just want to do whatever it takes to make more money and to grow the sport. So if they can find a place and they think it'll work, it'll happen. And I would imagine if it is a success, they'll do it every single year. So buckle up, teams. Get ready for your 15-hour flight. eBay Motors is here for the ride. You know, the first car I ever got, I was 16 years old. And my grandpa gave me a ride. And like any young lad who got a car that, let's face it, would not have been my first choice, I had to touch it up a little bit. And we tinted out the windows. We added a big subwoofer to the back. And you could hear me from miles away coming home. My parents sure loved me for that one. So did my neighbors. But I think the key to any young person getting a car is to personalize a little bit. Because you're probably not going to get your dream car. And as you get older, you know, you kind of become a car person or you don't. But you definitely have preferences, right? Some of us like bigger cars. I know I do. I've only had big cars, SUVs. And there are certain non-negotiables. I like 3 rows of seats. Now, ideally, I don't have kids right now, so I take out that 3rd row of seat, and I like a big, you know, I like a lot of trunk room. Some people, you know, don't like SUVs, like smaller cars. I've never been that big since my high school car of tinting the windows. I don't care if you see me or not. But I know some people, like, the first thing they do is tint the windows. It's crazy. The older you get, you know, I had to have the subwoofers. The subwoofer, I couldn't listen to music for 5 minutes with the subwoofer like I did when I was younger. But there is something very, very special about that first car. I don't care how many cars you get since, how much money you make to get sweeter cars. You never quite forget that first ride and some of the memorable moments that you had in it in your high school years. So with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. Because we're not doing a podcast on Friday, I did want to do a quick Fugazi Friday. When I bought the house that I live in now, it came with a pool. Because a lot of houses in Arizona come with a pool. It's 110, 115 degrees for 3 months of the year. It's actually been a pretty mild spring, early summer. I think the hottest it's been is like 94 degrees. But like most pools, you get a pool cleaner, right? I'm not talking about the guy that comes to measure the chemicals, but the guy that owned the place before had one of those long poles with the pool sweeper on it, which I've actually gained an appreciation for just getting outside, doing a little pool sweeping, and then throwing the stuff over the fence because I kind of live behind a wash. Here's the problem. When you live in an area where there are trees and you have your own trees in the backyard and it can be kind of windy. The other day I was using that pool sweeper and I was like, God, I've picked up everything. And I looked down and the pool was still covered with crap. It's like, this doesn't work. So what I did, the pool sweeper is an outdated item. I went on Amazon and I ordered basically an electronic top of the pool sweeper. And it's incredible. I can control it on my phone and it picks up everything. And then if more things come, it keeps going and cleans it up. Now, I'm going to miss standing out there, maybe taking my shirt off, catching some rays and walking around the pool, putting in some AirPods and just getting a little fresh air. But it didn't work. It doesn't work because you can't keep up with the wind and the leaves. It's impossible. The wind and the leaves just keep coming. Bugs keep hitting it. You're like, I could do this 24 hours a day and I still wouldn't be able to get. And I also think a lot of the stuff is like a couple within a foot below the water surface. So it comes up as you're doing the sweeping. These electronic sweepers, I now have an electronic pool cleaner that cleans the bottom and the walls, all run by my phone. And then this new one that sweeps the top. So we all talk a lot of shit about technology. It can drive us nuts sometimes. But it also has made life in the world much more efficient because some of the stuff really, really works.